Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum all my dear friends and English literature aspirants. This is your host Samia Omar and you're watching MA English Part 1 and 2 notes. Today we are going to start classical drama Oedipus Rex written by Sophocles. This is included in Part 1 syllabus of MA English literature and we are going to discuss its detailed summary and analysis today. This book you're seeing on the screen is NKM or KM series. I always recommend or refer this book to the students of MA English literature because it's very easy to understand and there is no tough vocabulary in it. So firstly, I'm going to introduce the author of this book and about its age. Also, I will give the introduction of Oedipus Rex. Okay, students, now you can see the picture of Sophocles, the writer of Oedipus Rex. He was a great philosopher and tragedian, very famous. Let's move on towards the short introduction of Oedipus Rex, author Sophocles. Sophocles was an ancient Greek playwright born in Colonus near Athens, Greece in 496 BCE. His father, Sophocles, was a rich member of a small community, the rural deme. Sophocles was highly educated. He is one of 3 Greek tragedians whose plays lived on. The Suda, which is an ancient 10th century encyclopedia from which we know that Sophocles wrote 123 plays, out of which we have 7 complete plays. These are Ajax, Antigone, Electra, Philoctetes, and Oedipus at Colonus. He took part in competitions and even won over the 2 popular playwrights, Aeschylus and Euripides. Now let's read about the introduction of the classical drama Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. Oedipus Rex, produced by Sophocles in the maturity of his powers, is his masterpiece. Aristotle also regarded this play as Sophocles' best, and he frequently referred to it as the perfectly type of tragic composition. Its greatness lies in the combination of a faultlessly structured plot with the profoundest insight into human motive and circumstance. It is the story of the impact of a totally undeserved misfortune upon a man of no exceptional faults or virtues. It reveals with a merciless sincerity the pitfalls lying about the path of a man, into which those very unexceptional faults or virtues may at a touch overbalance him at the bidding of some incalculable chance, and out of which he must raise himself by the greatness of soul which alone makes him a match for the eternal powers. Now quickly moving on to the detailed summary and analysis of Oedipus Rex. I'm going to read it out from NKM. You can also buy KM series, that is also good. Oedipus the King, summary and analysis. I'm going to read out the new characters. Oedipus, the king of Thebes, who is married to Jocasta, his mother. Priest, a priest of Zeus, the king of the gods. Creon, the brother of Jocasta, the mother of Oedipus. Chorus, a group of Theban elders and their leader, whose commentary helps the audience understand the events on stage. Tiresias, the blind prophet who sees the future. Detailed summary. The play opens during the plague years in Thebes. Miserable and dying, the people don't know what to do about their condition. Nothing, not even prayers to the god, is helping. Oedipus is a great and kind king, and he feels the pain of his people. Approaching the faithful but despairing worshippers at his altar, he asks what he can do. A priest of Zeus, the king of all the gods, details the despair of the people. Death is everywhere. Crops, livestock, people, all are being stricken. Despite the devastation, the priest still has faith in the gods and in his king. And having made offerings at the altar, he now begs Oedipus to do something. The king says that he has already done something. He has sent his brother-in-law, Creon, to the oracle at Delphi for advice. as omnipresent in ancient Greek affairs of state as political pundits are today, the oracle at Delphi combined the role of a religious shrine with that of a modern day spin doctor. The oracle's pronouncements were taken seriously by many powerful people, and it is a sign of humility and of respect for the gods that Oedipus sends for its advice. Creon returns, and Oedipus immediately asks for news. Creon hints that it would best be delivered in private, but Oedipus insists on having Creon tell his news publicly. The news seems simple enough at first. The oracle has said that the murder of the previous king, Laius, must be avenged. The complicated part is how to do this. The crime has gone unsolved for many years, and any clues the murderer left have long since disappeared. Oedipus mocks the people for having let such a crime go unsolved and unpunished. He vows to find the killer, serve justice, and stop the plague. In a long speech, the chorus mourns the dead and begs the gods for help. Oedipus hears the fervent prayers and tells the chorus to look to him for deliverance. He announces his intention to find and punish whoever killed Laius, and he warns of terrible punishments for anyone who hides the truth. The leader of the chorus suggests that the blind prophet Tiresias might be able to help, and the ever-vigilant Oedipus says the message has already been sent to him. This is an early foreshadowing of the interplay between sight and blindness that builds throughout the play. It is one of the play's central ironies that the blind old man is the first to see the truth. For all his strength, intelligence, and wisdom, Oedipus is blind to the central and most tragic facts of his life, that he is the man who murdered his father and that he has taken his mother as his wife. Although he has constructed his life to avoid the fate that was foretold for him, he has failed to see that all his efforts have only led him closer to fulfilling him that grim prophecy. When the leader sees Tiresias coming, he announces that the prophet is the man who will convict the old king's murderer. He speaks more profoundly than he knows. Oedipus welcomes the prophet with praise for his powers and his knowledge, but the seer is strangely reticent. He wishes only to go back home without speaking. At first, cajolingly and then angrily, Oedipus insists on hearing what Tiresias has to say. Tiresias says that Oedipus is the cause of the plagues and that the king is the murderer. In a rage, Oedipus rejects Tiresias and his vision and accuses the seer of conspiring with Creon against the throne. The leader of the chorus tries to smooth over the situation, but it's too late. Tiresias answers Oedipus furiously, saying that the king can see far less than a blind man can. The section ends with the mutual threats and insults. Discussion and analysis. The storyline and its characters were part of ancient Greece's oral traditions long before the first performance of this play, and the audience knew exactly what would happen before the gears of the plot began turning. But the relentless clockwork motion of the play kept the theatre-goers rapt then, as it does now, because watching fate unfold when it is known to you, but not to the people who are its prisoners, is a privilege borrowed from the gods. The Greek audiences who attended performances knew that Oedipus is bold, mighty, and just. He has human temper tantrums, and he is doomed. Their worldview included the idea that brave, wise, clever heroes who were tragically flawed by out-of-control pride, hubris, would inevitably be destroyed. That idea is a central theme of Oedipus the King. Before the action of this play begins, Oedipus has already attempted to outrun fate, marking himself early for destruction by attempting to escape a prophecy that he would kill his father and leaving the palace at Corinth, where he was raised. He sets the machinery of doom in motion. Traveling along the highways, he soon enough meets and murders a man he thinks is merely an overly aggressive stranger. Years later, he discovers that the dead man is his natural father, Laius, and that he has unwittingly performed the act he was trying to avoid. The audiences of the ancient world knew all this when they filed into the outdoor stone theaters where the play was staged. The play begins with Oedipus again attempting to reshape the arc of his life that was described by prophecy. The hints of his coming failure are numerous. In the priest's first long speech, when he begs Oedipus to save the city, he appeals to the king's long experience as a statesman, as a wanderer, as a ruler, and as a vagrant. Unknown to the priest and to Oedipus, but known to the audience, is that this king's experience also includes killing his father and marrying his mother. The very experience to which the priest appeals is moving Oedipus step by step to destruction. This exchange between the priest and the Oedipus is but one example of how Sophocles built dramatic tension into his play by including multiple levels of meaning in a single statement. The technique will be repeated throughout the play. It reappears just a few lines later when Oedipus tells the priest that he has asked for help from the oracle at Delphi and will follow its advice or consider himself a traitor. With the borrowed omniscience of the gods, the audience knows that the Oedipus is already a traitor for having killed Laius and that he will be faced with pronouncing the judgment he has pronounced upon himself. It remains only to witness what happens. In another exchange, weighed with similarly complex levels of meaning, Creon tells Oedipus what he has learned from the oracle. Creon begins with the murder of Laius as background, and Oedipus says that he knows of the previous king but has never seen him. Creon continues delivering the oracle's instructions, and Oedipus vows to find and punish the murderer of Laius. While the oracle's wishes are being delivered by Creon, and while Oedipus reacts to them, the audience knows, as before, what Oedipus does not: that he murdered Laius, and that he is the dead king's son, and that the widowed queen Oedipus married is his mother. Once again, there is something transfixing, tragic, and doomed about watching Oedipus, in his ignorance, attempting to follow the oracle's orders, but all the time preparing for the revelation of his crime and his subsequent doom. The first hint of the truth is revealed to Oedipus by the blind prophet Tiresias, and the king answers the seemingly unbelievable charge with rage, insults, and threats. Raised in Corinth by the royal house as if he were the natural son of his adoptive parents, Oedipus rejects what Tiresias says as arrant nonsense. The blind prophet who taunts Oedipus as being the one who is unable to see the truth has challenged the king to reconsider everything about himself, his parentage, his childhood, and how he came to rule Thebes and marry the city's widowed queen. The challenge is met with rage, and Oedipus ends with section unable to see the truth or to hear well-intentioned advice. Now, students, new characters will be entered here. First one is Jocasta, the queen of Thebes who is married to her son Oedipus, and a messenger. This is a messenger from Corinth. Detailed summary. This section begins with a long song from the chorus, whose faith in the power of prophecy and in Oedipus, their king, is being sorely tested. One thing is certain, that someone who committed the terrible crime of murdering Laius is loose in the city, and fate lies in wait to punish him. The chorus says, but the prophet Tiresias, who has always been reliable, is now making terrible accusations against a king who has been brave, just, and wise, casting the chorus into turmoil. Deciding to put off any decision, the chorus demands proof before accepting the charges Tiresias has made. The gods who know the truth could supply the truth the chorus seeks, but Zeus and Apollo are keeping what they know to themselves. While the chorus awaits for the gods to speak, the members hope that Oedipus turns out to be innocent. Creon enters then, proclaiming his innocence. Angry and feeling wronged, he wants to confront his brother-in-law over the charges of conspiracy and treason that Oedipus has publicly hurled at him and Tiresias. The leader of the chorus advises calm, saying Creon should consider overlooking the incident, but that is not going to happen because Oedipus enters and repeats the charge. The two men interrogate each other, trying to prove guilt and innocence, and Creon cleverly argues that he doesn't want the throne. Being the king's brother in law gives Creon all the prestige and wealth of the ruler with none of his responsibilities. Creon says. The leader of the chorus hears reason in what Creon says and suggests that Oedipus is being hasty in condemning his relative. Oedipus rejects this advice, saying he wants Creon dead. The two men resume their argument, and the leader of the chorus attempts to intervene when Jocasta enters. Jocasta is Creon's sister and the wife of Oedipus, and she breaks up the fight between them by shaming them into silence. She gets from each man a brief version of his side of the story, and then she asks Oedipus to believe her brother's denials and to spare his life. The chorus sides with Jocasta and Creon and says that Oedipus would do well not to execute a kinsman on a whim. Oedipus yields, but without grace. Creon leaves, muttering prophetically that Oedipus is the type of man who goes too far. Oedipus and Jocasta quarrel over Creon, and the chorus interrupts them, saying there is trouble enough in Thebes without the royal couple fighting and making things worse. The chorus gives Oedipus and Jocasta some privacy, and the queen asks the king why he is so upset. Oedipus says that Creon has schemed with Tiresias to pin the murder of Laius on him. Trying to calm her husband, Jocasta says that she and Laius long ago outwitted the gods and their prophets, and that he need not fear them either. Proclaiming victory over everything sacred, Jocasta tells Oedipus how she and her first husband Laius cheated fate. It was prophesied that their son would kill his father, and Jocasta and Laius undid that foretelling by abandoning their infant boy to starve on a mountain side. Everything turned out fine, Jocasta says, and there is nothing to worry about now. Instead of calming Oedipus, his wife's narratives makes him more upset. Pieces of memory begin forming themselves into frightening shapes in his mind. As he quizzes Jocasta on the details of the former king's murder that filtered back to the palace, Oedipus begins to suspect that he murdered Laius. Jocasta tells Oedipus not to jump to conclusions, and they agree to send for the old freed slave who is the murder's sole surviving witness. Oedipus then delivers a long, soul-searching speech. He still believes himself to be the son of the Corinthian king Polybus, and he is bothered by a dim memory of a drunken reveler at a banquet, saying otherwise. At the time, his parents denied that he was adopted, and he believed them. He continued his history with the story of his visit to the oracle at Delphi, where he heard for himself the prophecy that he would kill his father and wed his mother, a loving son to the only parents he has ever known, and a bold, intelligent man who believes he can use his powers to thwart fate. Oedipus fled and never returned. Wandering, Oedipus soon meets and kills an old man and the escorts accompanying him. The confrontation begins as an ordinary roadside fight over who has the right of way, but it escalates quickly into murder. The old man started the fight, according to the version of events that Oedipus remembers, by nearly running Oedipus off the road and then striking him. The old man asked for a fight, but what the old man got was death and the fulfillment of the prophecy that he would be killed by his son. Oedipus is just beginning to figure out who the old man was. Telling the story, Oedipus feels his memories connect now with the present, and he sees for the first time that he killed the stranger at the same crossroads where Laius was murdered. Showing humility for the first time in many scenes, Oedipus prays to gods that someone can somehow clear him of the crime he now suspects he committed. Jocasta answers by telling Oedipus to put his faith in her, just as she and her first husband thwarted fate when they abandoned their infant son, so Oedipus outran his destiny when he fled Corinth. Not exactly, says the chorus, calling down the judgment of the gods, furious at the prideful way in which Oedipus and Jocasta have proclaimed themselves to be capable of outsmarting the gods. The chorus says that its members will worship the gods no more if the prophecy goes unfulfilled. Jocasta herself soon has second thoughts about mocking the gods, and she prays to Apollo. Oedipus is distraught, and Jocasta says she feels helpless. A messenger from Corinth appears. He announces that Polybus, the king of Corinth, is dead, and that the people want Oedipus to be their king. Hearing this, Oedipus believes that he is now free of at least part of the prophecy. If death has claimed his father Polybus, then Oedipus cannot possibly commit patricide. He announces his victory over oracles and prophecy, and Jocasta shares his pride in thwarting fate. This victory turns out to be illusory. Worried about the part of the prophecy that says he will marry his mother, Oedipus says he must stay away from Corinth as long as she is alive and well there. Attempting to comfort Oedipus, the messenger from Corinth speaks and winds up revealing shattering details of the truth. King Polybus raised Oedipus as his own son, the messenger says, and Queen Merope loved the child as well as any natural mother, but they were only foster parents. Oedipus is free to go back to Corinth anytime he likes without fear of illicit relations with his mother because Merope is no blood relation of his, the messenger says. Instead of bringing relief to Oedipus, this news increases his distress. He presses the messenger for details, and the messenger says that the child raised by Polybus and Merope was a foundling rescued from a hillside where he was abandoned to starvation, his ankles bound together. A shepherd found the child and delivered it to the messenger, who turned it over to the childless royal couple at the palace. Oedipus asks for a description of the shepherd, and the messenger says he remembers only that the man was a servant of Lais. Determined to know the whole story, Oedipus asks if anyone in the chorus knows this shepherd. The leader of the chorus says that it's up to Jocasta to say. Jocasta is beginning to suspect the truth, that the baby she abandoned not only killed Lais, but he is now her husband. She begs Oedipus to call off this quest. Discussion and analysis. Several themes presented earlier in the play are built upon in this section. How pride and faith in his own abilities moves Oedipus ever onward toward doom. How a failure to honor the gods results in the very destruction they foretell, and how humanity is unable to escape what is predicted for it. The long speech by the chorus that opens this section is a meditation on these themes, mixed with the confusion of loyal subjects who have been given some reason to doubt the king they revere above all mortals. The argument between Creon and Oedipus that follows this speech underlines the human frailties of both. The brother-in-law, whose defense against treason is his claim that he would be loath to sacrifice the ease and comfort of his lifestyle as hanger-on for the responsibilities of power, and the king whose raging temper leads him to recommend execution on a whim. Neither man behaves well, nor does it take Jocasta to end the argument. Jocasta herself is a flawed individual. Her arrogant dismissal of the gods and her proclamations of victory over fate foretell her undoing. As much as Oedipus, she is unable to see until it is too late that her life fulfilled the very prophecy she sought vainly and with pride to undo. Oedipus begins to see in brief glimpses how blind he has been to central facts of his own life. He gets a clue when the messenger from Corinth arrives. The messenger comes to deliver news that is sad, the death of Polybus, the king of Corinth. But Oedipus takes joy in the idea that he has now evaded fate. You can't kill a dead man, Oedipus reasons, and now that Polybus has expired due to natural causes, Oedipus thinks himself free at last of the prophecy of patricide. His only problem now is to avoid marrying his mother. If he stays away from Corinth and steers clear of Queen Merope, the widowed queen, he will have outwitted fate completely. Thinking that he is doing a good deed, the messenger tells Oedipus that Queen Merope, the widow of Polybus, is no blood relation. It's fine for Oedipus to come back to Corinth any time. He is in no danger of fulfilling the prophecy there, the messenger says. By telling Oedipus that the queen who raised him is not his natural mother, the messenger has unknowingly revealed enough of the truth to make Oedipus tragically curious and to push Jocasta toward despair. Motivated by a simple desire to ease worry, the messenger has released the machineries of fate that will produce the full revelation of the truth and all its awful effects. His intentions were good, but the results will be very, very bad. When the messenger speaks, he is as blindly ignorant of his fatal role in a serving destiny as Oedipus and Jocasta are of theirs. He speaks, but he does not see. In this section, the theme is hammered home time and again that people go through their lives thinking they are fulfilling one purpose when they are actually lurching towards the completion of several others. The gods know this and watch events unfold from above. The first audiences of this play knew the histories of its characters before the first lines were spoken, and the drama unfolded for viewers who watched with the borrowed omniscience of the gods. Modern readers are left to decide for themselves what they think about fate, prophecy, and human attempts to outrun destiny. Students, here we are introduced with new characters. A shepherd. The shepherd saves Oedipus when, as a baby, he is abandoned with his feet bound on a barren mountainside. A messenger. The messenger from the palace sees a grim sight. Antigone, the daughter of Oedipus and Jocasta, who are mother and son. Ismene, Antigone's sister. Detailed summary. Jocasta asks Oedipus to drop the idea of locating the shepherd who saved him from abandonment, but he won't hear of it. As deaf to her pleas as he is blind to the truth about himself, he vows to discover his origins. Leaving the stage with a cry of anguished grief, Jocasta worries the leader of the chorus, who suggests to Oedipus that the queen's sorrow could lead to something awful. He is right, as the play's earliest audiences knew, but Oedipus brushes off the leader's concerns, vowing to discover his origins. Oedipus once again displays his unerring ability to walk into trouble by acting on his passion. Trouble appears quickly enough in the person of the shepherd. Preferring to let the secret remain buried, the shepherd tries to avoid answering the questions Oedipus asks him. That tactic elicits threats of torture and death from Oedipus, who is bound and determined to know what the shepherd so desperately wishes not to tell. The secret is revealed very quickly once the shepherd decides that there is no point in trying to squash the truth any longer. The baby that Jocasta and Laius abandoned was the same baby who was raised at Corinth and who came home to Thebes to kill Laius and marry the dead king's bride. Oedipus quickly realizes the horror of what he has been told, and he rushes off stage to nurse his sorrow. The chorus reacts by first singing of the glorious achievements Oedipus won for himself in the world, an ancient Athenian example of the best and brightest of men. He was mighty, he was clever, and he was just. But that didn't spare him from being the most awfully cursed individual that anyone in the chorus can imagine, the members say. Piling tragedy atop a tragedy, a messenger from the palace comes on stage to announce that Jocasta has taken her own life. He gives the chorus every ghastly detail: how she tore her hair from her head on her way to the royal bedroom, how she bolted the doors shut behind her, and how she wailed with grief and sorrow. Oedipus is also beside himself with misery, and the messenger describes how the king followed Jocasta to the bedroom and broke down the doors. Inside the chamber, Oedipus discovered his wife and mother suspended with her head in a noose, swinging back and forth, dead. The messenger tells the chorus that after Oedipus gently lowered Jocasta's body and laid it down, the king pulled pins from her clothes and blinded himself, driving the points of the long shafts again and again into his eyes. As he blinds himself, Oedipus rages that he has long been metaphorically blind and now he chooses to be physically blind. The chorus is moved to pity, but shudders at the gruesome sight of the blinded king, blood streaming down at his face, publicly bleeding, guilty to the crimes that have just been revealed. Oedipus tells the chorus that he has chosen blindness because maiming himself is the one thing that he has ever done in his life that was not prophesied by the gods. The chorus answers that it is better to die than to be alive and blind, but Oedipus insists that his self mutilation was the right thing to do. At least now he will not have to see his father's eyes when they meet in death, he says. He also can't bear to look at his children, his kinsmen, or the people of Thebes, he says. Creon comes on stage flanked by guards and he orders the men to bring Oedipus deep inside the palace to spare the ruined man from becoming a public spectacle. Oedipus begs Creon for banishment, requests a decent burial for Jocasta, and asks that his daughters be looked after. His sons will manage, he says. They are men, and they can always make a living with their own hands if need be. But the girls were princes, reared for marriage to royal men, and they have no hope of finding husbands now, Oedipus says. Creon grants all these requests and brings the girls to Oedipus for farewell embraces. Oedipus apologizes to them for the horrors they must now live with and begs them to somehow find a way to transcend the awful circumstances of their lives. The play ends with the chorus saying that, despite his might and brilliance, Oedipus has ended up crushed by sorrow. If this can happen to Oedipus, the man who solved the riddle of the Sphinx and who became a mighty king, it can happen to anyone, the chorus says. Discussion and analysis. It took years for fate to catch up with Oedipus and Jocasta, but once it did, it moved very, very quickly. From the beginning of this section through the last lines of the play, the storyline's momentum accelerates until it becomes unstoppable. The discovery of one act leads to the revelation of another, and they accumulate quickly into destruction. The audience watches the culmination of everything that has come before, knowing that all that was foretold is now coming to pass. Jocasta is the first to guess the truth, and it is so unbearable that she rushes to her chamber and takes her own life. It is possible that Oedipus could have saved her, but her anguish, which is so palpable to everyone else, is obscured for him by the urgency of his desire to learn what he still does not know. His quest is rewarded soon enough. His reaction mixes grief and shame with wounded pride, and he puts out his own eyes. This self mutilation is a mad act of defiance because it is the one act of his life that no god has prophesied. Creon takes the throne in an unchallenged coup, ending up through no action of his own, exactly where Oedipus accused him of plotting to be. Oedipus entrusts his two daughters to Creon's care, saying that with their marriage prospects totally blighted and the career world a man-only place, they must be protected. The new ruler promises the broken blind king that he will take care of the two little girls, Antigone and Ismene. Oedipus says he is less worried about his sons. They will be more able than his daughters to make places in the world for themselves because men have more opportunities, he says. The play ends with the chorus drawing a pragmatic lesson from the story the members have just witnessed. If the mighty king Oedipus can end up as the plaything of fate, cursed by the gods and crushed by sorrow, then no human beings are safe from tragedy so long as they draw breath. The final song the chorus sang was a kind of pointing out the moral warning which the spectators can derive from the fate of Oedipus, who was the greatest of men and was believed to hold the keys to the mysteries of the universe. He enjoyed enviable prosperity, but fate plunged him to the depth of degradation and misfortune. Human beings must not be blinded by the present situation but think of the ending of their lives, which can change lifelong happiness into direct misery. As long as a man is alive, it is premature to call him happy. He can deserve to be called happy only if his happiness lasts up to his dying moment and stands by him until he has seen honorably buried. So, here, students, we have discussed thoroughly and in detail the summary of the classical drama Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. I hope you have understood the concept and the main themes of this drama. Okay, students, till then, this is your host Samya Umar signing off from MA English Part 1 and 2 notes. If you like this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe my channel for more informative and quality notes videos. Also press the bell icon for notifications so that you don't miss any important videos. Take care and Allah Hafiz.